From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Happy Monday and welcome to another exciting episode of the CyberHub Podcast, May 19th, 2025. And if you're sitting in your seat, I'm glad you are. And if you're standing up, that's okay too. We're going to get into a lot today, including this whole Coinbase hype. And I'm going to say hype because there's more than meets the eye. And I wrote about it. And for some reason, we made a mistake. We published it as a paid article. It shouldn't have been. It'll be free in shortly here after the show so y'all can read it. So I apologize for everyone over the weekend. And my phone's been off most of this weekend as I took some R&R. So I wasn't really paying attention to that. So again, apologize. Saturday article was part of our paid edition, not the free, but it is now free. It'll be free here in about an hour. So 10 a.m. Eastern should be free. And you'll have it in your inbox. You can read the whole thing. I'm share a lot of it on this morning's show. So before we get started, I've got my double espresso this morning to power me through. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. All right, let's get into this Coinbase thing. And by the way, I've got hot commentary. So, you know the thing about being a practitioner and then a podcast host is a lot of PR people reach out to me with the dumbest quotes from people. Like, I don't know, James, have you seen this PR thing? Have you seen this breach? Here's a quote you should feature. We're going to feature one quote today that I think topped the worst quotes ever sent to me ever about a data breach. Ever. That's saying a lot because my inbox typically, now thanks to AI, I rarely see these, but this one made it to my inbox, and oh boy. So here we go. So here's essentially what happened. This wasn't a data breach per se in the terms that we consider it to be a data breach. Was data breached? Yes. However, the way data was breached was very, very different. They were social engineering and bribing offshore customer support contractors, right? So what data did they lift? Names, addresses, phone numbers, government ID, partial SSNs, unlimited account metadata. They didn't get any private keys. They didn't touch two-factor. They didn't touch passwords. All in all, under 1% of Coinbase's customer base. 1%, under 1%, right? And good morning to Mr. John Dela Cruz. Thank you for tuning in, buddy. The extortion play that demanded $20 million from Coinbase. Coinbase did the Mel Gibson ransom. If you haven't seen Mel Gibson in Ransom, like it's an old movie, but if you really like, someone kidnaps his kid and is asking him for money and he goes, you know what, I'm not going to pay you. He stacks the money on a TV station. Like back then, this was TV for a lot of our younger audience. It's how you communicated with the world. The internet wasn't really a thing. Neither was YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or all of that. And he put the money on there and he said, this is the closest you're ever going to get to the money you're asking me. I'm paying everyone in the city $10 million or whatever the thing was to give me information about you, and made them turn them into the hunted. The exchange tells the SEC the bill could hit anywhere between 180 to 400 million. And you see everyone kind of talking about the 400 million in reimbursement and remediation. I think part of this is business interruption. It's not just the idea of what's going on there. So again, this goes into the whole idea of what was stolen, which is static identity data. And static identity data for all of y'all is public data. And in fact, it's something that I think we ought to rethink and reconsider in terms of data breach notification. There was once a time, and someone said this very, very smartly a while ago at a CISO conference I was at. There was once a time where your name and phone number weren't private. In fact, they were available at every street corner, in every phone booth. It was some big yellow book called the Yellow Pages. And those who remember it can chuckle, and those who don't. But the Yellow Pages was a big book you got. It was, some people had it at their homes, right? You wanted to look up someone's phone number, right? Like before the internet, before you followed someone on Instagram or Facebook or X or TikTok or anywhere else, right? You had one thing. You would use you would go into the phone book and you would look up the last page of someone from your school who you wanted to call, and you would essentially try to find their name, and then you would call them. And so that data was publicly available even before data breaches. So why are companies having to report publicly available data that's publicly available to begin with. I think there's an issue here that we ought to re-examine as an industry as a whole. And again, I'm not dismissing this, but look, at the bottom line is there's context that we need to look at here. And here's the context. Insiders aren't just foreign risks, right? Edward Snowden was born in North Carolina. He wasn't an offshore guy. You know, that doesn't mean anything. Someone who says this is the risk you take with offshore, I don't know. I think this shows you some of the risks with offshore, shows you how you need to tighten ship around those risks. And human telemetry doesn't equal machine telemetry. We often talk about visibility, right? SIM, SOAR, CNAP, all these different technological products that are monitoring our environment. Yet our humans are always our last and first line of defense. And when the human is taken advantage of, at that point, you've lost all your defenses. So now it goes, do you not trust humans? And that just seems really, really awkward to say, right? Like, I can't not trust humans because I don't want to work in that type of environment. I don't want to live in that type of world where I can't trust the people I work with because we're sharing a joint goal together. It's part of a community of making a business successful, of trying to do the best jobs we have. And some people may disagree with that point, and that's okay. But there comes a time where we need to look at user behavior analytics at a deeper watch and a deeper level. We've got to dig layers into it and go, what does an average human interact with? What does that look like? When is something off? And is it the types of accounts they access, the amount of accounts they access versus the amount of calls they take? There's so much to it. There's that. Then I want to give you the PR hurricane. So this came here, and it came from a CEO of a company based out of California. I won't say who, but this is the quote, and you can chuckle with me. It's a big breach, the first of its kind involving bribery and social trickery. No, it's not. It's not the first of its kind involving bribery or social trickery. There's many breaches that have done that. This person's misinformed, malinformed, or otherwise just jumping into a PR with a garbage statement of a CEO of a cybersecurity company. Cybercriminals first paid money to Coinbase support staff to get customer name, email addresses, and driver's license. That's literally what you just said. Bribery. That's what you do when you bribe someone. You bribe them for information. You took information. Then you reached out to those customers pretending to be Coinbase. JP Morgan in 2014, those guys hacked the database. They didn't have to bribe anyone to do it. And then they were pretending to be JP Morgan Chase, pushing, and other brokerages, and they were pushing stocks that they own for pump and dump schemes. So sorry, it's happened before. And they tricked them into transferring their cryptocurrencies. Romance scams, all these scams that Pierogi and a lot of people that if you follow any of that, all of them, it's exactly what they do. They trick you. They pretend to be from Norton. The trickery is not new. Trickery is always there. The way we authenticate as a customer to the business that's calling us has to change. The way the business authenticates us as humans. That relationship, that authentication token has to be relational. It can no longer be one-sided. That's all this tells me. And that's the quote from a CEO of a company. I don't want to call him out simply for that. So there's that. And so Coinbase Chief Security Officer Philip Martin said over the weekend to Bloomberg that what these attackers were doing was finding Coinbase employees and contractors based in India who were associated with our business process, outsourcing or support operations, and bribing them in order to obtain the customer data. So there was a number of specific bribery incidents that this threat actor is claiming credit for throughout the course of this time, but they did not have persistent access. Again, that is not what a breach makes. So I'm hoping this quelled the hype for you. I hope this did. It's not as big of a deal. Other stuff. Let's get to it. All right. UK government confirms a massive data breach following the hack of a legal aid agency, the Britain's Ministry of Justice, confirming today that attackers did access a large amount of information from people who applied for legal aid, potentially including some of their criminal histories. According to the Ministry of Justice, everyone in England and Wales who applied for legal aid using the legal aid agency's online platform since 2010 may be affected by legal aid applicants, which include some of the most vulnerable people in our society. Hang on. If you're applying for legal aid and you are charged with a crime, how are you vulnerable? You're literally perpetrated a crime. Okay. So this is a research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, and someone who was a former lecturer in security and intelligence. Former, the latter. There's that. The perpetrators of the data extortion incident claim to have data on more than 2 million people. They've threatened to publish the data online in what would amount to one of the most significant breaches to ever impact the British criminal justice systems. Um, Again, some of this is very private data. It's bad. And again, I'm going to go down with the fact that when you hack legal aid, why are you holding data back to 2010? Like, how's that data still on a hot server? One thing you know in financial services or in any business, as a security practitioner, as someone with any sort of IT and kind of like data common sense is, here's what you say. What does the regulatory framework require me to host hot? Meaning the customer requires it. I got to be able to furnish it within seconds or minutes, maybe hours. And then what I don't need, I move to cold storage. These are sealed off databases that may be used for data science, may be used for auditing purposes in the future, may be used to build a better framework of a customer over a period of 20, 30 years. All of that's acceptable. Fact is that when you hold on to data for so long, you keep this available there as well. The MOJ confirmed on Monday that the group had access and downloaded a significant amount of personal data from those who applied for legal aid through the digital services from 2010. This does include contact details and addresses, their dates of birth, national ID numbers, criminal history, employment status, and even financial data. Again, if you're someone who may have been charged with a crime in 2011 and you paid your debt to society, you sealed that record, and now this becomes available, that could be extremely damaging. What are they asking for, though, is very interesting. Are they asking for ransom? What are they asking for exactly? I don't know. That's not clear here, but nonetheless, something to keep an eye on. Ransomware gangs are increasingly using a new malware called Skitnet or BossNet to perform stealthy post exploitation activities on some of these breach network. The malware has been on sale since at least April of 2024, but according to ProDaft researchers, it started gaining significant traction among ransomware gangs early this year. ProDaft telling Philippine Computer that they observed multiple ransomware operations deploying Skitnet in real-world attacks, including Black Bastard or Microsoft Teams phishing attacks against the enterprise and the Cactus. The Skitnet infection begins with a Rust-based loader dropped and executed on the target system, which decrypts a ChaCha20 encrypted NIM binary and loads it into memory. The NIM payload establishes a DNS-based reverse shell for communication with the C2 server, initiating the session and randomizing DNS queries. Then they start 3 threads, one for sending a heartbeat DNS request, one for monitoring, and one for exfiltrating shell output, and one for listening for and decrypting commands from DNS responses. And then that's executed via an HTTP or DNS based on commands issued via the Skitnet C2 control panel. And then allows the operator to see the target IP, location, status, and issue commands, and so forth. The supported commands are startup, screen, AnyDesk, Rust, serve, shell, and AV. It enumerates AV so that it remains stealthy post-exploitation. Japan on Friday enacting a new law that will permit the country's authorities to preemptively engage with adversaries through offensive cyber operations to ensure threats are suppressed before they cause significant damage. The new law, which was first mooted in 2022, is intended to help Japan strengthen its cyber defense to a level equal to major Western powers, and marks a major break from the country's traditional approach to cyber defense. The new active cyber defense law mirrors recent reinterpretations of Article 9, providing Japan's self-defense forces with the right to provide material support to allies under the justification that failing to do so could endanger the whole of the country. It explicitly allows law enforcement agencies to infiltrate and neutralize hostile servers before any malicious activity has taken place, and to do so below the level of an armed attack against Japan. And while the self-defense forces will take responsibility for tackling particularly sophisticated incidents, the new law is intended to enable Japan to identify and respond to cyber attacks more quickly and effectively. They're essentially doing active cyber defense. They see an attack, they hit it, they pause it, they get it out of there. There's that. CISO also now, and by the way, a good law by Japan. Just personal take here because I'm running over on time, but personal take here. Great law from Japan. Congress should do the same, and we should be hitting people before they hit us. CISA warning U.S. federal agencies to secure their systems against ongoing attacks exploiting the high severity vulnerability in the Chrome web browsers. So this is CVE 2025-4664. which technical details were shared on May 5th. There's now active exploitation. You want to make sure you get that patched up. Pwn2Own in Berlin. Over the weekend, competitors earned $435,000 after exploiting zero-day bugs in multiple products like SharePoint, VMware ESXi, Oracle VirtualBox, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and Mozilla Firefox, with Nian Huang Toch of Star Labs SG earning $150,000 for a vulnerability in the VMware ESXi for an integer overflow exploit, and $100,000 earned for Din Ho On Ko of Vital Cybersecurity, making $100,000 for hacking Microsoft SharePoint by leveraging an exploit chain combining an auth bypass and an insecure deserialization issues. A lot comes out of these. FBI now warning the public after investigating a malicious campaign targeting former senior U.S. federal or state government officials with deepfakes. The campaign, the agency says, relies on text messages and AI-generated voice messages impersonating senior U.S. officials. They establish communication with victims. They send malicious links, allegedly transitioning the conversation to a different messaging platform, but aimed at serving malware or harvesting credential to gain access to private accounts of former U.S. military officials. Something to keep an eye on. And in Good Guys Prevail, 3 different stories here. 12 more suspects were charged in a RICO conspiracy for their alleged involvement in the theft of over $230 million in crypto and laundering the funds using crypto exchanges and mixing services. 2 other suspects linked to the conspiracy, 20-year-old Malone Lamb and 21-year-old Ginadil Serrano, were arrested and charged in September of 2024. The court documents say that Lamb and Serrano and others involved in the scheme allegedly gained unauthorized access to victims' cryptocurrency accounts, transferred funds into crypto wallets they controlled. In an August 18th attack, they stole over 4,100 bitcoins from a Washington, D.C. victim worth more than $230 million at the time. Crypto fraud investigator Zach XBT assisted FBI in investigators revealing the group targeted a creditor of the Genesis crypto exchange, which using spoofed phone numbers and impersonating customer support at Google and Gemini. So they got that. Now all of these folks are being charged. Some of them are based here in the U.S., and you see their names there. And we'll have those available at cyberhubpodcast.com, where you can find everything there as well. Israel further and arrested an American Israeli national named Alexander Gurvich for allegedly his involvement in exploiting the Nomad Bridge smart contract in August of 2022 that allowed attackers to siphon $190 million. TRM Labs supplied key information to international law enforcement authorities, leading to the identification of Gurvich, who is believed to have played a central role in what is one of the largest hacks in DeFi history. The suspect, a dual national of Israel and the U.S., was arrested in Jerusalem by Israeli police in coordination with the DOJ, FBI, and Interpol, and is now his extradition has been approved to the U.S., and he'll be facing justice here for his crimes. And an Alabama man has been sentenced to prison for his involvement in hacking the SEC's official X account. Eric Council Jr., 26, also known as Ronan or a Giant Schnauzer, was arrested in October of 2024, pled guilty in February of this year for his role in taking over the account to publish fraudulent posts about Bitcoin. The whole thing there has happened. So Council was sentenced to only 14 months in prison and 3 years of supervised release in order to forfeit $50,000 all in all for hacking the SEC account. That's it for our show today. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest. Now you can go to our website, cyberhubpodcast.com, get all of these stories in a nice, beautiful format directly in your inbox by just subscribing there. So go do that right now if you haven't done so yet. You also get our exclusive Saturday articles. Until tomorrow, thank you all for tuning in. Have a great week. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.